Ready. So we were saying that last class we were analyzing some aspects about language and how language can be seen from two different perspectives, even for three, but so far we have analyzed two. The first one is as a system, language as a system, and the second one is language as a discourse, right? And basically, the difference between those two is that seeing the language as a system, we tend to organize the language in different aspects, in different linguistic aspects, different linguistic fields, and we can't also like discriminate those fields, and we can distribute those fields into rules or into sections, into different systems. But seeing the language as a discourse, the context becomes something that is important. The context determines many things, and we could see how the communicative competence emerge not only from the linguistic competence, but also the sociocultural and pragmatic competence start enacting in this vision of the discourse. And also, we could see how the speech acts, the locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary functions started having a very important play in the discourse as well as the functions mentioned by Halliday, the additional, interpersonal, and textual function. So we have those two different perspectives, language as a system and language as a discourse. And those two also are going to influence the way that you are going to teach. Because if you have a vision of the language as a system, you are going to see the teaching from a different perspective than if you have a vision of the language as a discourse. So in that regards, we are going to work today, or we are going to discuss today about the reading that you had for today about teaching. Could you finish the reading? Could you read everything related to teaching? The chapter that I asked you? No? Why not? I would like to know why.
Well, Professor, in my case, I thought it was chapter 4. So I, when I realized I was reading the chapter that it wasn't to read. So I began to read like in at 7 p.m. So I just read like 10 pages for that.
Okay. Okay, that worries me because it is important for me that you read, right? So if you don't read, I am not going to teach you everything because this is not the idea. This is not my vision of teaching. My vision of teaching is not giving a lecture. It's to discuss. That's my style, as you could notice here. So for discussing, I need you to read. But if you don't read, it is very difficult for me to discuss about the possible or the possibilities that there are for the reading. Let me do something then. What can we do? Okay. Okay, so from the pieces that you read, what could you get? What could you get from those pages that you read? What is important for you about the teaching? Anyone? Giancarlo? Giancarlo, what did you get from what you read? Hello?
Hello, Professor. I got some ideas. Well, not some, a couple of ideas, but the main
Jason?
thing I'm Jason.
Yes, go ahead.
The main thing I got from the reading is that the input has to be modified in order the learner could be capable of got the input, but the input has not to be just modified in order the learner get just the grammatical part. It has to be like me, like in the previous chapter that we were analyzing, like with contextualize, like with and social background or something like that, not just focus on just grammar, because that was the form-based instruction, and the meaning-based instruction was something like I don't remember well. It was like focus just on like teaching, but the natural way, not just focus the learner in memorize the grammatical part. I think that well, I couldn't read the whole chapter.
Okay. So Luisa Fernanda, could you please explain what you wrote on the chat?
Well, first they talked about like a modified input by input modifying it based on form, but they say that based on form, the learners will get like the knowledge of or the ability to manage the language, but they won't get like the communicative ability in order to use this structure to have like let's say like a real conversation about input modified on meaning. They talked about brushing and why they say and what they said. He said about I don't remember the hypothesis right now, the name, but input hypothesis, and he talked in this hypothesis. He talked about how input must be comprehensible, but in the last paragraph of this modified input based on meaning, they say that it is not as important to know just meaning, because well, according to some pruebas, I don't remember, they found that the students that get just meaning, they are likely to commit errors, grammatical errors. So they need also an input of grammar or of form. And they also talk about in the reading that, well, both are necessary, form and meaning, in order to develop an ability to communicate something, but with a good structure in order to be accurate.
Okay, so we have here the three light sides that Jason and Luisa have explained. The first one related to the input, and we have to position ourselves as teachers, okay? In this case, remember always that we are talking about here teaching and how we can do the teaching act. So the first one, as they mentioned, is remembering. That's why I didn't ask you to read the previous one, because you analyze those if hypotheses, the comprehensible hypothesis and all the crashing hypothesis in the previous semester with Professor Carlos Munoz. You studied second language acquisition theories. So it is supposed that you learned those theories and you understood those theories. Even Giancarlo, who went many times with this professor. And that's why I didn't you to read this part. But as teachers, we have to understand that this input, and this input is very important for the classes. And this input is very important for the way that you are going to deliver the class. Because if you have this input, or if you have the idea that input is just form, assuming that the language is a system, because if you can see, the two things are connected: language as a system and input in the way of only form, right? Those two are connected. So if you believe that language is a system that you can divide, that you can teach in different pieces, into systematic way, the input is going to be that way. If you believe that the language is a discourse, so you are going to resort to another way of seeing the input. You are going to resort to the meaning as part of the input, right? So you are going to try to have activities or to present activities in which the meaning is the base, right? The meaning, because that's the point of this input. However, in the last part, we can see that there must be a balance, or there is another suggestion to see a balance between the form and the meaning. So in that case, or in this case, meaning, that it is this discourse, is seen as something important, but also has to be along with the form. So the form cannot be abandoned, because the form is going to give the student, or it's going to be the learner, the structures that he or she is going to use in order to make, or to perform the communication, right? So although the meaning is important, and the intelligibility, as you said last class, the form is also important. So it is our duty as English language teachers to balance between the form and the meaning, okay? So that's one of the points that we can get. However, it is still your decision what kind of language vision you have. It's going to be reflected in the kind of teaching you have, right? So that's something that we have to acknowledge as well, right? So do you have the chance of reading interactional activities? The section about interactional activities, this part, show you this section. Do you have the chance of reading this part? Yes, okay, Clara Victoria. So what did you get? Clara Victoria?
Yes, Professor. Well, what I understand of this part is that interaction is really important in three aspects: as a textual activity, that is trying to make yourself understood by modifying your language phonologically, I think, or I don't remember the aspects like syntax or something like that, in order to avoid or diminish. I don't remember how.
Diminish.
Okay, diminish the breakdowns communication. And also, it is really important the interaction as a interpersonal activity, because we have to see the classroom as a society, so where everyone can interact with everyone, with each one, and they can try to learn by each other. So the interpersonal activity, it is not enough as well. So then we try to look forward the societal, oh no, ideational activity.
Ideational.
Ideational activity, yes, because it is not enough the textual and the interaction. So we have to look through a critical perspective of the society. Um, some critical pedagogists call that as a empowering education. I'm not sure, empowering education, if I remember. And it is like the personal, like the growth to the curiosity about the society, the powers, or when is some inequalities. So what we have to try to do is to growth in the students a curiosity about society. So these three interactions are really important, but not working one by one, but it is possible all together.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, we have here three different positions. Again, the first one as a textual. So interaction, remember that interaction is to um, communicate also. It's a way of communication. So you have the um, the possibility of seeing interaction as a teacher, remember that, not as a student, in three different ways. Interaction as a textual activity that Clara has already explained, the interaction as an interpersonal activity, and interaction as an ideal activity. Okay. Um, Jesus Daniel, could you please explain a little more what you are saying in the chat?
Yes, Professor. Is to add what Clara said, that was a really clear point about the first one. I just want to add that they said in the text that they, beyond just look of the interaction in the two person or in the persons in a community, they gotta understand what they are saying and how language functions are evolving in the conversation that they are doing. So that's what they explain the most, that it's focused on how is language evolving into the conversations, and make like a, I don't know if parallelism between how was language in before conversations, and how is language in nowadays, and how it will be later.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, that's very interesting. So now, so far, we can say that there are positionings, like positionings regarding to language and regarding to teaching. And this positioning regarding to teaching has to do with two things, the input and the interaction. So if we see in the language, we can have this idea of language as a system, language as a discourse, and also language as an ideology, but we didn't read about that. But language as an ideology is more or less what happens with the interaction as ideological. In the input, we have the form, meaning, and meaning and form. That's the way of input. Remember that the input is everything that you are going to give to your students. And the interaction is how they are going to use what you give. So in interaction, we have the textual. So the textual is only a resort, is only related to the practical aspect, to what they can do with the language. For example, if they are going to do a reading exercise, or if they are going to do a fill in the gaps. So how are they going to relate with that language? How they are going to interact with the language, right? So it is a textual one. So there is interpersonal. So in the interpersonal interaction, you can see that people are going to start using the language with other people, but there is a third level that it is the ideational. And in the ideational, what people are doing is, or what the teacher is doing, is provoking or going beyond the structure, go beyond the interaction or the communication, and start including social factors, social aspects that they can discuss, that they can like analyze in the classroom. So the English class is an English class, but using the reality or using the social issues that are over there and that we can discuss, right? So there is not any problem with that, since the English class is not just a class for transmitting knowledge, right? If we see that teaching is transmission of knowledge, we can see, or we can relate that input is going to be form, and input and interaction is going to be textual, or at least a little bit interpersonal, but it's not going to go beyond. Okay, so now I would like you to, I don't know if you have questions about these aspects, the language and the teaching, right? I don't know if you have problems with that. Okay, so now I would like you to do something. The first thing that I want you to do is to think about these positionings about language and teaching, and try to go back and analyze your language teachers, not any other teacher, language teachers in high school, or your language teachers at university. Just try to remember them and try to see what were their vision about the language and about the teaching. What could you infer from what they did about their language vision and their language teaching? Do you understand what I am asking for? You're understanding? You understand? Yeah, so try to think a little bit, and
not
then we
at
are
all,
going to
Professor.
share.
Sorry, I couldn't understand very well. Could you say it again, please?
Yes, me either.
So you are going to remember your teachers in high school, your English teachers in high school, and your English teachers here in the program. Try to remember them and try to see what are their visions or positions regarding language and teaching. How do you think, or what? Okay, so how do you perceive their visions of language and teaching were, right? So just think about your teachers, try to remember what they did, and try to analyze what kind of language and teaching vision they have. Okay?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, so a couple of minutes, and then We can continue. Ready? So anyone want to share? I don't need to listen to names, but only a like the analysis that you did. So
I can,
Jesus Daniel,
Professor.
yes, Jesus Daniel, go ahead.
Okay, I was like thinking about, and I have like differences between the professors in the school and professors at the university. Uh,
Mhm.
I live in Palermo, so our schools, I can say that they are not really prepared for L2 classes. And I can say that most of my no, I think that all my professors, they see language as a systematic, and they overview about teaching about interaction was as a textual activity. And I say this because they always were focused on teaching us grammar, and not like an advanced grammar, but the basic rules about everything in English. I can say that never in my high school they put me like in pairs or to do presentations in English to see me or my classmates talking or presenting something. And also this was really hard for me when I got into the university, because in the university everything changed. I can see that there were another kind of teaching and overviews about language, because in there our professors, they start to explain us that the english the English and us as a professors gotta see beyond what it's explained to students, a grammar book or a grammar activity. We gotta explain to them that this sentence, these words are gonna be used in the real world, and how can we learn how to use it in an extensive or in the real world. So that's it.
Okay. That's interesting. Any other person?
Okay, I think that it happens in most of the Colombian public schools. But in my school, it was the same. I studied in INEM, in Julián Mota Salas, and it was almost the same. The professor just uh, teach vocabulary and no more, just grammar. We have to memorize that vocabulary, and and it is all. But in the university, uh, professors are more like dynamic as they um, like to play with uh, activities, innovative activities that trigger your language.
Okay, but that triggering of the language that you are saying is in which, let's say, in which level? From the textual, from the interpersonal, or from the delusional?
From the interpersonal and also personal.
Okay. Thank you very much, Michael, for your answer. Any other person wants to answer?
Hi, Professor. Good morning. Sorry, yeah, keep going, keep going.
Christian and then Andres. Christian.
Good morning. In high school, my teacher used to teach us different substantives, verbs, and grammar without tell us how to pronounce in the real world. And that's why when I entered to the university, I have some problems when I wanted to speak in English. And at the university, teachers used to be tell us spelling and pronunciation in order to be understood in a real world. For instance, teachers used to use different strategies in order to be understood, such as groups, videos, photocopies, and among other things. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Andres?
Thank you. Well, now when you tell us to remember our learning process through all these years, I think I went too far in my past, but I remember that the first time I started studying English, it was like in primero, but it was not a properly English. I mean, my first grade I did it in 2000 in the 2000s, so I don't know. In that time, the English it was not like a very in public schools. There was no like too much interest in it. So fortunately, I had a teacher that she hired a third person teacher because she was the only she did it at first, but she just went and look at the dictionary and teach us words. So she got tired of that, so she hired a third person teacher. Unfortunately, that teacher was awesome because she was even if we were just kids in first school, she was trying to teach us more the communication skills, the interaction skills rather than the grammar based skills, right? Then and I had the opportunity also to study in a private institute of English, so, and there also it was more focused to the communicative part and not much the English as a system. However, when I studied and I entered to study in high school, even if it wasn't a private school, the English teacher it was like too much grammar based, like all my partners just said. So in that, I had a process that it was more like focused on communicative and not too much grammar based English. So I had a shock, and believe it or not, I always failed English in high school because it was the same teacher from sixth grade to 11th. So I always fail. I don't know why I only passed the third period, but I always failed. Sorry, English. Then when I came to the university, I have like this bias ideas in my head. Like, how do I have to learn only grammar? Do I have to develop my communication skills and or the language beyond that? And then I realized, well, it was my paradise. I had too much. I have learned too much from here, because it's very different. Also because, yes, the like the intensity of the language is different, because, well, this is a major focus on that. But yeah, this whole process has been giving me like the language should be taught more than beyond the grammar base.
Okay, thank you, Andres. Thank you, Andres. That's very true, and I see. I mean that you have very different positions between or regarding the what has happened with your teaching, and very different experiences. The thing is here that in this class we are going to try to understand ourselves as teachers first, and then we are going to prepare uh, our classes, right? So in that order of ideas, and having those learnings in mind, the learnings that you have had from your experience and the learning that you have had from the readings that we have devoted today, we are going to do an activity. This activity is individual. I'm going to show you this one. I'm going to share this. So give me a second. This is an activity that is in Classroom, in Google Classroom, but I am going to share the link from here to see if it works or not. Okay, so go to this link, please, the link that is on the chat, and you are going to have, let's say, 15 minutes. There are only 3 questions, okay? Try to open it. Let me know if it opens. And answer the questions. Only 3 questions. And we can have 15 minutes for answering the questions. Yes, it opens. Okay, right. So take your time, 15 to 20 minutes for answering the question. Please be like descriptive, be explicit, try to link the answer to the theory that you have learned. But basically what I expect is that you are going to be honest. Okay? Right, so I'll wait for you. Any question, any problem with the link? Okay. Ready? No yet? Okay, a couple of minutes more. Monica, I think that your first answer was incomplete. So try to complete it. Ready? I can see that only 8 people have finished. 9. So time is over. It was not that complicated. It's just your point of view.
Professor,
Yeah.
Andres Giraldo told me that he doesn't have internet connection because it is failing.
Okay.
So
Okay, no problem. So he has the chance of doing this in a minute. Okay, guys. So I think that it's over. The time is over. We have to finish right now. Please send your answers. Send your answers right now because we have to continue. And we are going to continue reading because the base of learning is reading as well. And I'm going to show you what we are going to read today. It is very short and we are going to do it in groups. Or, yeah, we are going to read that in groups. And we are going to have a discussion because the last question of the questionnaire has to do with how would you see yourself as a teacher, right? How do you see yourself in this profession that is teaching? And sometimes, as I read in the answers, it is complicated to see ourselves now if you are not working as a teacher. However, I could say that it is possible to like perceive who we are going to be in the future. So we are going to try to define that. And based on that definition, we are going to construct the idea of ourselves as teachers throughout this whole semester. And let's see what is going to happen at the end of the semester. So in this sense, what we are going to do is to read a piece of a chapter here. Pay attention to this in this book, Beyond Methods, right? So this is the book that we are going to use today. It's written by Kumar Abadivelu as well as the previous book that we were reading. So on page number 7 of the book, and on page number 5 is the title. The title is Conceptualizing Teaching Aids. So we are going to try to find out what kind of teacher can we be, or what kind of possibilities do we have. So we are going to go to this page, page number 7. Can you see?
Yes, Professor.
Page number 7, the role of the teacher. Only from page number 7 to page number 17, you are going to find 3 different roles of the teacher, 3 different roles. So I would like you to go over each one of the roles, try to find out what is the meaning of each one and the characteristics of each one of the roles of the teachers, right? So you're going to do it in groups, so I'm going to assign the groups here. And let me tell you something. While I am choosing here. So you are 24. 6 groups today, right? Right. For the first activity, I want you to be sure that your names is on one of the mind maps, because I received one mind map that says that I don't remember my classmates. So it is important, if you work with someone, at least to remember or to write down the names of everybody on the papers, right? In this activity, or in the activity of today, there is not going to be a result. Let me see. With the new person, I don't know if there is anyone. Okay, why? But you are going to discuss about this point. Okay. 5 people. Okay, let me check. I'm going to create it again. 4 people are enough. Okay. Ready. Yes, I know Alejandro. Alejandro didn't remember who he worked in the first concept map. Remember the point of the concept map? So he would like to know who it was with him to include it in the paper. Okay, so we are going to go to the rooms, and we are going to read the paper. Beyond Methods, page number 7. Go to the groups, guys. Kevin. Kevin, okay.